Morning folks, welcome back. This is a Z1-R tank, not the Z1-R tank, and we're going to use it as a test tank for road testing and things like that. The Z1-R tank is safely tucked into, wrapped around and padded up with blankets and towels and things, and it's inside the house in a very safe location because we're not going to take any of that stuff out yet until we do the actual shakedown, which is still a little bit away. But I got to get this prepped because the inside of this tank is all full of rust basically. So let me show you what the inside looks like real quick. Unfortunately, I can't get her to focus too well. One dang thing there, that's a little better. You can see this tank's got a lot of rust in it, and it's worse in some spots than it is right here actually. So yeah, so you can see that there's enough rust in there to warrant some concern. We certainly don't want to run any fuel in that and directly into the carbs. Definitely going to put some fuel filters in line. You know, the fuel cock has two outputs, two ports. One goes to 1 and 2 carb, one goes to 3 and 4 carb. We'll put some fuel filters. I have some nice inline ones we can put in there that will help, but I'm not going to just trust those because, you know, small particulate can still get through like the really fine rust. And I'm getting inundated by skeeters here, dang it. And so yeah, I'm not going to trust that. So we're going to go ahead and make a plate that's going to go over this hole because we don't have anything else to put over this. This will be capped off. And for the purposes that we're going to use it for first, and I'm not going to show this part on video, I'm just going to show you how to make this, is we're going to be doing a phosphoric acid. It's very, very, very diluted. It's kind of old. I may actually get a new gallon and start with that and mix it with some of the older stuff. Because we got to get that rust out of there, and it's not terribly bad. And since we're not using this tank, I don't have to be too worried about, you know, the paint or anything like that. So what we're going to do is just do a quick soak. Yeah, you could use vinegar. You could use a whole bunch of different products out there. Some guys talk about, you know, mixing muriatic acid 50-50, and that works too. But it's also very harsh. It's very aggressive. I like Ospho because you can dilute it down, and you want to let it sit for a couple of days. It's not going to hurt the metal. I mean, if you have a really trash tank, it's going to go through and create pinholes. Nothing is going to stop that. But in this case, I like to clean off mild to moderate rust with Ospho. That's just the way I like to do it. But we have to plate this off first. That's what we're going to do in this video. For material, I'm going to use this scrap piece of aluminum. This is a door or something off of that old monstrosity circus bike back end. If you look at the circus bike video playlist, it's quite a long time ago. I don't know, a year and a half ago or so. I don't know. This is just one of the pieces that came off of that, that abortion that whoever made this back box on this bike looked like, something you push around the circus, to sell hot dogs in. That's where I got the name from. So we're going to cut a piece out of this and then use it for that. How we're going to make the holes line up is just make a template out of some paper, trace it over with a pencil. That'll give us some really accurate holes. Transfer it over to this, go to the drill press, bang it through. I don't need the mill for something like this. It's easier just to move it around the drill press, and then boom. I'm not going to cut this one off quite yet because I want to be able to hold it. I mean, you could do that. You could just cut it off and then use some vice grips or something to hold it down. But I find it easier when you have a whole piece like this to lay your template out, drill your holes, then cut it to the proper size, make any adjustments if you have a clearance issue. Sometimes when you fill these things up on other bikes, there's something more closely to it that you have to accommodate for, grind an angle into it or something. This one's pretty straightforward. So we'll go ahead and make a template, lay it out on this, drill it, and we'll cut it, and then what we're going to use to seal it off, I keep old tire tubes around, for motorcycle jobs that I've done over the years, changing out tube, particularly like in dual sports and MX bikes and stuff. I keep some of those old tubes around. We're just going to make a seal for it, use a punch kit, one of those regular punch kits, or you can use a leather punch kit, leather hole kit, click, 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 that kind, to make the holes. And then we'll put it in with some, I guess M6s. I'm not sure if it's M5s or M6s on this. It looks like M6. Then we'll put it in place. Another thing you can do is just push it down with your finger till you hit the hole, and that'll make you a pretty good impression too, like I'm doing right here, especially if your finger's a little dirty. And I may end up doing mostly that, but I'm going to try to outline a little bit better with this. There's one. So if you make a little indentation, it gives the pencil something to knock itself into and get the high spots. one there. Kind of like that. All right, we're right on the money there. This is what she looks like. So now we've got some idea what we can make out of a template. So we'll just cut this out and put it over on the aluminium. It's nice to tape it down in the aluminium so it don't move. We'll center punch it and drill it, and then we're almost done. Got her taped down. Luckily, this piece of metal is the right width, so you just kind of rub the other edge that runs wide, and then you get an idea where the edge is, and then you can line up the holes so they're not too close to an edge. You know the deal. It's not that hard. So now we're going to center punch it, and I was just thinking that center punch would be an excellent name for a heavy metal band, don't you think? I'm liking it. Now what I do is I just circle the dimples with a marker because I goof up a lot, and I'm trying to minimize the amount of goof ups because I'll shove the hole in the wrong spot, go, what the hell happened, you know? So this minimizes my dumbassness. You know, I was going to use the Grizzly drill press, but you know what? Let's, I feel a little nostalgic today. Let's go ahead and use Dad's old drill press. This is a 1980s in Sterling Industrial Machines drill press. My brother and I bought it from our dad at that time for Christmas or his birthday or something. I don't exactly remember. I do remember the conversation because we were deciding whether or not to buy him a welder or a drill press, and we figured that we could use a drill press. That's us, the boys, more than we could use a welder. So we got Dad a drill press so we could use it. And it's old, but it still works. That's a 5.5 millimeter drill bit because the screws are actually 5 millimeter. I didn't realize that. I thought they were. I mentioned it earlier, but they looked a little small. So they are 5s, which actually works out pretty well for me because you know, those holes are blind holes, and so you can only use very short ones. Now normally if I use this on a tank that I'm doing, you know, if I was doing that tank or I was doing another one that had a sender in it, I would simply use the hardware that came off of the sender itself to bolt the plate in place. But unfortunately I do not have that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to hook it up with some M5 carb screws out of my carb screws parts drawer. Now, I got some small ones, but I'm going to use some used ones. I don't want to use a new one because we got to shorten them up even more than this little guy. These, like I said, these holes are blind holes. They're very short. We'll figure that out once we cut this, lay it in place, and make sure we didn't screw it up too bad. You know, if you screw it up, or probably I did, you know, just go a little bigger with one of the holes. It's not going to be a big deal. It's not like a precision part, but, you know, I always try to be as precise as possible. All right, I cut it off, chamfered the holes. I'm not going to do too much on the edges here except deburr them. But see, this is what I was talking about before. We have a interference right there, right on that edge. So I'm going to have to grind a little bit off of that edge so it fits up, because otherwise these holes, most of them on this right side at least, will not go up far enough because it's hitting on the edge of the tank lip there. And so I'll go do that, and then we'll come back and verify that it's going to fit, and we'll make our gasket for it. I do have one hole here that's a little off on this right side, and that's all right. It's just the way it is. So I'm going to go fix that, and then we'll test fit some screws in and make sure it goes. The rest of them line up pretty good. But this one walked off to the right side here a little bit. You can kind of see it. Yeah, it happens. I mean, you don't need to put this in a mill drill or a milling machine with a DRO and do a bolt circle calculation on the DRO to make a part like this. You know, old drill press, even a hand drill is fine. Bzz, 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 just make adjustments as needed. That'll work. Yep, I mean, there's one or two that are kind of... This one over here I may adjust a little bit because we should have a little bit of play in here, but... You know, like I said, it ain't going to the moon. You just make a plate. But, you know, it's got to be fairly accurate. It can't be all over cattywampus, because the thing is, you got to have all the screws in, otherwise you risk it's going to start to leak. Because what I forgot to mention before was we're going to use this same one to hold fuel back when we go to test ride it. So this plate's going to go on. Hopefully it fits okay inside the tunnel here and everything, but we can modify it at that point. I'm sure it will. But we're going to use this to hold fuel and restrain the fuel while we test ride it. So it's going to be served two purposes, or serving two purposes. Is one to clean inside the tank with that product, and number two to hold fuel in. So it's got to be right, you know, it's got to hold fuel. So it's one of these things where, you know, you just kind of work it until it actually fits and it seals up and it's all good, you know. So it's not precision, but you got to be somewhat precise, is what I'm saying. This is just an old rubber inner tube, based on the size of it's from a rear wheel, like a dual sport tire. We'll get ourselves a nice clean section out of it, and we're going to make ourselves a gasket. Mark our holes with a silver marker. Now we'll go ahead and get a punch out. This is just a general universal punch set that you get on the Amazonian for punching holes. It's actually pretty good. I've used it only a few times, but I do like it. This is a 1/4. Now we'll go bigger than that. You know what, I'm going to go with quarter, ultimately. I was thinking about using 5/16 here, but that's too big. 5/16 is basically 8 mil. Quarter is closer to 6, and these are 5, so I think there's a reason that the quarter should be about right. And if it's a little small, it's fine. That the screws will still go past it. And it looks pretty good. So what I need to do now is make the screws. I'll do all that off camera because I got to cut some screws down and dress them up. We'll do that in the lathe, and then we'll install it. See how it looks. I made 6 screws for it, and you know, I got a rant about this. If you're going to be a painter and you're going to paint shit, protect the damn screws. Every damn thing I work on, whether it's powder coated or painted, the lazy asses don't protect the threads, and I got to chase them with a tap, and sometimes that'll change the amount of thread engagement because it's already been tapped once, and you know, taps differ a little bit in manufacturing. I mean, it's just not good practice to do this. I just don't understand why people can't just do their freaking jobs and not be such slobs and lazy asses, you know? Come on, do your jobs. You got one job. It's to mix paint and spray it on something. You know, just freaking do it right. Rant over. I may have gone a little aggressive on the cutting part of that one. Yep. Whoops. Fart knocker. I'm going to have to remake a couple of these. A couple of them are just too darn short, but you get the idea. I don't want to screw with this too much longer, so I'm just going to use these newer ones that are shorter. They're not going to get damaged anyway because these are not through holes, they're blind holes. But they themselves are a little too long still, so I'm just going to put some M5 stainless washers on. That one's no good. And then we'll just build them up. I'll put 3 washers on each. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass taking it off and on again with the washers, but you know, it is what it is. And I don't feel like messing with cutting screws. You can never get it right because I can't chuck these in the lathe right. You know, these rounded or panhead screws are a real pain in the butt to manipulate in the lathe. As far as trying to part them or something, you can forget that. You know, shorten them that way. So what we're going to do is just use the shorter, newer screws. They won't get damaged, as I said, because these are blind holes. They don't go into the tank, in other words. So the product that we're going to be using to clean them is not going to damage the screws. Not that it really matters, but you know, I want to use these in carbs eventually. Need to order some more of these shorter M5s, I guess. Just put them back in the drawer when we're done with them. Just don't bottom them out because there's not a lot of room there anyway because it's an M5. In this particular case, I guess there would be, but in some others, if they use a smaller screw, it's because they don't have a lot of room in there, all right? And if you do that, then you don't necessarily have a lot of room for drilling it big and then putting a like a helicoil or something in. I don't think these screws being a little more proud of the surface than than what normally is there. And what normally is there is probably about the same, because those are generally like a little hex bolt, like a shoulder hex bolt that hold the sender in place. So I don't think they're going to be a problem, and I don't think this edge is going to be a problem either. I think it'll be okay to have that in the spine here where the frame is. So if everything clears, then we'll just use this again for both purposes, for cleaning out the tank with acid, and then also for using it with gasolina. All right, not too shabby. I'm liking it. All right, let's take a look at it. Nice and tight. We're not bottomed. And again, it's not loose. So I've never had one of these leak before. So, you know, I'm confident this is going to be the case. And I've done this many times. Make a plate, screw it in place. Again, usually using the original hardware, but we don't have that here. And then this will be fine. So this is how you can get around this, is to, if you have a tank that you're going to work on, and you have an opening from a, from a sender or something like that, we certainly don't want to use the sender in there, and have it bathed in acid or something. It'll destroy it. There's copper in that, and so you don't want to necessarily do that. It'll destroy it. So we're going to have to make a cover plate. This is an easy way to do it. We just trace out a template, center punch them, heavy metal, and then you drill the holes and do whatever else you need to do to seal it off. Old tire tubes work great. I've never had them compromised by like OSFO or anything like that, because again, it's not a terribly strong acid. I mean, it's phosphoric acid. It's in your Coca-Cola, folks. That's what they put in Coca-Cola, is phosphoric acid. Of course, a very small amount, but I'll probably end up picking up another gallon of it, as I said before, and we'll throw some fresher stuff in, because the stuff I got has probably been used a dozen times and it's diluted down. But that's it. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something from it. And you know what to do if you did. You need to stick around for other videos like this as well. So thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.